Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Record Review Masterclass. Oh, gosh, these are fun because you're giving me such wonderful, meaty reviews to work with. So I thank you all for participating in this exercise. And this is a particularly interesting case, I think you're going to find, because it raises some issues that are general. They go well beyond the focus of this particular review, which is actually quite interesting. We're talking about the Bach cello suites performed by Jean-Guihen Queyras. Jean-Guihen Queyras. I don't know how you pronounce that. Does he know how to pronounce that? I have no clue. And it doesn't make a damn bit of difference, as I've said so many times before, as long as you know who you're talking about. So this is his recording from 2007 on Harmonia Mundi. And here is the review in 3 wonderfully pithy paragraphs, as I requested. You ready? The catalog is now replete with versions of the Bach cello suites from the most famous cello soloists and early music specialists for the last half-century and more. Thanks to the fervent work of the great Pablo Casals, yes, there it's there, nearly every professional cellist has embraced these, not only as, we need some punctuation here. There are some stylistic issues here. Has embraced these, not only as curiosities to be studied, that one is there, but as performance works of great depth to be committed to disc. With such a full catalog, is another recording really necessary? The answer is yes, if that recording happens to be this stunner from Jean-Guihen Queyras. Okay, the answer is yes. That should be in quotation marks, maybe with an exclamation point or a comma after yes. If that recording happens to be this stunner from Jean-Guihen Queyras. Okay, there we go. Paragraph 1. Little cleanup things, little edity things, which probably you, the writer, would find yourself if you edited carefully. Always edit carefully. I've said this a couple times already, but in this day and age, there was a time when you could get away with this because there were serious editors at actual magazines who had a house style or their own style, and they would go through this very carefully. Nowadays, people just throw it up on the web and publish it the way it is. So you have to be your own editor. You really do. You have to be good at proofreading your own work. That's horrible for all of us. I do not diminish the difficulty of doing that, because I suck at it. We all suck at it. You guys correct my headers and things all the time, just on YouTube. At ClassicsToday.com, I try to be extra super careful. And even then, things get by. So I'm just raising the issue because you don't want to embarrass yourself. Right? I mean, that's what it is. Second paragraph. Okay. While he has studied historically informed practice, most notably with Anna Bilsma, whose own recording of these is one of the prime recommendations in that style. This performance is on a modern setup. No, not setup. That's the wrong word there. It's on a modern instrument. That's all. That's it. And combines elements of modern sensibilities and HIP. Again, you don't want to use the word modern twice in such a short space of time. What I would say is, and this performance is on a modern instrument and combines elements of both sensibilities. That's it. Done. The interpretations have a dance-infused lightness, sparing use of vibrato, and display at all times Queyras's elegant command of technique. At no point do any of the string crossings, double stops, or wide intervals seem unidiomatic, and his phrasing is crystal clear as a result. The preludes offer the more rhapsodic interpretations with flexibility of time that you would want, we need punctuation, sir. I'm just saying. Let me read this the way you wrote it, if I can, in a breath. The preludes offer the more rhapsodic interpretations with flexibility of time that you would want, but keep a clear sense of line. Sample the famous prelude to the first and fourth suites to hear this on display. That's in brackets. we need a little work here. The preludes offer the more rhapsodic interpretations, comma, with a flexibility of time that you would want, but maintain a clear sense of line. And then you have in parenthesis, sample the famous prelude to the first and fourth suites to hear this on display. Well, you're talking about two of them, so prelude needs to be plural. Sample the famous preludes to the first and fourth suites to hear this on display. Okay. He takes the repeats and does so meaningfully, comma, not only adding ornamentation, vibrato included, the second time around, but also expanding his phrasing so that, for example, if a phrase dips down to piano the first time, he takes it down to a whisper the second time. The word down here needs to be fixed, just as a point of style. Expanding his phrasing, varying his phrasing, I would say, actually. So that, for example, if a phrase dips down to piano the first time, he plays it at a whisper the second time, something like that. You have to vary the words that you choose a little bit so that it doesn't sound mechanical. Anyway, this is done to almost comic effect in the jig of the fourth suite, where the final note on the second pass receives some tongue-in-cheek use of vibrato. I don't know if it's interesting how you describe it. I think that you're talking about vibrato a little bit too much, and I say this as somebody who talks about vibrato too much. I know there are other ways to say it. Tongue-in-cheek use of timbre, something like that. So you don't have to let people figure out what the timbre is, but you don't have to be that specific in repeating the same words over and over again. Okay, last paragraph. And this is the one where we run into some trouble. Interesting in terms of structure, and then a wider issue, which comes in at the very, very end. Okay, Harmonia Mundi's sound is warm and polished while remaining clear, matching Queyras' interpretive and technical finesse. Given the faithful attention to the score and the absence of any distracting idiosyncrasies, this set can be recommended as a recording with which to begin your listening and collecting of the cello suites. If you already have a version from your favorite cellist, this will make an enlightening contrast. If you're used to the more romantic performances, okay. All right, if you're used, U-S-E-D is the word, not U-S-E, not use. So that has to get fixed. That really stops your reading dead in its tracks because it doesn't make any sense the way it's written. So, if you're used to the more romantic performances of Rostropovich, Maisky, and Yo-Yo Ma, Queyras will again be a welcome contrast that is no less expressive, just with different means. All right, fix that and you're in good shape. Here comes the problem. You ready? The prelude of the second suite is a perfect place to start hearing this difference. Where the former performers have vibrato as a constant presence in their tone, here it is used as a subtle garnish to the tone at cadence points. All right, you're repeating vibrato, repeating the word tone, but more significantly, you're starting the review all over again in the last paragraph. This belongs in the body of the review. It's a good comparison to make. It's a nice comparison to make. You've already established your bona fides in terms of the fact in the second paragraph that you know the discography and that you know the work, and you've chosen some very, very good examples to support what you're saying. But you can't start doing that all over again when you should be wrapping things up. I frankly would just take that entire paragraph out. The entire sentence about the comparison with Yo-Yo Ma and Maisky and Rostropovich and those. But you can combine these two thoughts where you say something like, given the faithful attention to the score and the absence of any distracting idiosyncrasies, this can be recommended as a recording with which to begin your listening and collecting of the cello suites. If you already have a version from your favorite cellist, such as the romantic interpretations of Rostropovich, Ma, Maisky, This will make an enlightening contrast, period. And then you can get rid of all that stuff that comes afterwards. You bring in the discographic comparisons, you make your point, and you don't have to start talking about vibrato all over again and all of that stuff, because you've already done that, and it was fine. So let's see. We have this, okay, the garnish in that business. Okay, we got rid of the garnish. Enough of the garnish. The final chords, instead of the usual thundering accents and vibrato, receive ornamenting is not a word, ornamental scales, and are played completely straight with a beautifully floated final chord. Again, that goes. You don't need to say that. You go straight to your conclusion. But even that is problematic. Look, you say, as his second recording of the suites is forthcoming next month, first of all, you need to bring in Queyras again, because you haven't used him in a while and you've talked about everybody else. So let's see. As Queyras' second recording of the suite is forthcoming next month, it's a good time to become familiar with his captivating first reversal from 2007, period. Oh my. That is not a conclusion. That is your first sentence, right? Queyras' new recording is due out shortly, but we haven't spoken about his first one yet. So let's see how this one stacks up. I mean, that's what you're really saying, and you cannot say that in the last sentence, number one. Number two, if there's another recording coming out in the month, why are you reviewing this one now? I mean, seriously, shouldn't you wait until that next one comes out? And then you can do a comparison of Queyras with himself and these other things. You'd be much better off. I mean, this is a really questionable way to finish your review, because you're already, do I need to say more, really? But it's a problem that we all run into. What happens when you're dealing with artists who have multiple versions of the same music? It's a conundrum, isn't it? Especially when one of them is terrific and they're going to do it again. I mean, in only a few years later, or a decade later, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I mean, they're all doing it over and over and over and over again. And it's crazy. And you might want to say something about that, about the mere fact that why is he doing it again when he has such a good one coming out? Now, you could say that. You could say, I'm puzzled as to why he felt the need to make a new recording, which is coming out next month, when this one is so good. And I'm going to tell you how good this is. And then when that one comes out, we're going to come back and review that too and see if it measures up. I mean, it gives you the fact that another recording is in the works gives you many possibilities, but those have to be reflected in the organization and shape of your review. You know, you've ended where you really ought to have begun. Let me put it to you that way. And it changes the entire thrust of what this review ought to be. So think about that. And if you run into this situation where you've got multiple performances of the same work by the same people, which happens all the time in the basic repertoire, think about how that impacts the structure of your review. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me, and thank you for this submission. Again, your knowledge is not in question. It's a function of style and shape, form and structure of the review, organizing your thoughts in the most pertinent and powerful way. So keep on listening. Thanks for joining me, and take care.